Hi, I'm Jennifer from Shabby Fabrics. I have a fun DIY project today where I show you how to make two pincushions, one for home and one away, out of a charm pack and the Hexamore ruler. Now there's some projects back here that are in separate videos, so if you're interested in how to make the pillow, be sure to subscribe to YouTube so you'll learn more about how to make that pillow and other fun projects as well. We're always coming up with new innovative ideas and ways to use rulers and pre-cuts, and so be sure to subscribe. So what you'll need to do the home and away pincushion is a charm pack. Moda makes charm packs, Maywood Studio makes charm packs. What charm packs are, if you're not familiar with the term, are 5 by 5 inch squares. They're pre-cut, and most of the time the edge has a little bit of a pinked edge, and that's so that the fabric doesn't fray. So there's a variety of different colorways and styles. There's Christmas ones, so you're sure to find something that will inspire you, and that's available on the home page under fabrics. Just click on pre-cuts and you'll see jelly rolls, layer cakes, and you'll see those charm packs there. So you'll need a charm pack. You'll want to use the Hexamore ruler. Now the Hexamore ruler is a little bit of an investment, but we have other projects coming that use that ruler, and so this is a great investment here. You'll also need something to stuff the pillow with, and I recommend these are ground nut shells. You can pick those up at a craft store, Michael's, Joann's, Hancock's, because it's going to give this some weight, because if you just stuff it with batting, it's not going to have the weight you need to not be moving around on your crafting or sewing table. So I recommend the ground nut shells. You'll need needle and thread, so you'll be able to close that. Scissors, marking tools, rotary cutter, kind of the standard crafting supplies. Let's get started. I'm excited to show you how to use this ruler for this project. So I'll set these aside for now. Let me show you the front and the back. The front takes 6 charm squares and the back takes 6 charm squares. And the neat thing is that the little away version is made out of those same 12 charm squares. So you don't need anything additional to make the small version, the little baby version. So I have my 6, and you can really cut them all at the same time, which will save you time and energy. So just stack them up pretty close, because we are going to be using most of that square. So there's not a lot of extra wiggle room. So you do want to stack them up pretty close. Now with the Hexamore ruler, what we'll do, we'll start with this long side. I'm just going to use that initially. I'm going to get my glasses here so I make a good cut. We're just going to trim off all of the edges at the same time so that those are exactly the same. So let's do that. Now, this is where one of those mats that rotates is handy, and I don't have one with me today, but without disturbing this, I'm going to go ahead and turn that around. The opposite side, I will also trim just a little bit, and I just want to check it, make sure, yep, I got all of those. They're all good? Okay, so let's put that aside. We need a little bit of space here. One other thing you will need for this project is a medium to heavyweight fusible interfacing. I'll show you how we'll be using that a little bit later. Now, you've got the 2 trimmed edges and the pinked edges. Go ahead and turn the fabric as a stack, so that edge, one of the edges that you just trimmed, is toward you. So we're going to turn the ruler, and then use, I'll put it over here so you can actually see it, the 3.5 inch triangle. There's the solid line and there's the dash line. Go ahead and take the solid line and put that kind of far left. Now if you're left-handed, you would be over here more toward the right side. But if you're right-handed like I am, you're going to want to put that solid line right on the edge of your charm pack stack. And you'll go ahead, and the first thing we're going to do is move this out of the way. Now don't be tempted to leave that stack there and try to come back in. You know, I don't like cutting cross-handed anyway, because I think it's a good way to get cut, and I don't want to get cut. Go ahead and move that out of the way because this group is what's going to make your little pincushion. Okay, let's do that. And holding that real steady. Be very careful when you do this because it is awkward and it would be easy to be cut. Okay, so that is, let's put that aside. Now you're ready to go. How quick and easy was that? So here's the bottom half of the pincushion. We'll be making the top half together. So I'm going to put that here so you kind of see where we're going with this. So you see how the two navies, it looks like a black, but it's kind of a really dark navy. They're opposite, the red's opposite, the white opposite. Of course, it's your preference, however you want to lay out those triangles. But we thought that was a cute to have them opposite. So looking at this, we're going to mimic that. We'll lay this out. Notice this is the blunt edge. Blunt edge up, blunt edge down. Blunt edge up, and then down on the bottom, it's the long side together, blunt edge down, blunt edge up, blunt edge down. So just have it all laid out ahead of time so when you do sew them together, everything's going together in the proper order. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll take the first two pieces and we'll lay those right side together. I want you to see what this is going to look like. You see how one triangle is stacked absolutely on top of the other? And you see a little bit of that pointy edge sticking out here because the blunt tip got cut off because of the ruler, and the same back here. So when you take this to the you take this to the sewing machine, so I'm just going to show you that again. So here's what it looks like. Flip that over, and I'm really looking at, see how these line up absolutely exactly? And the reason I'm going into so much detail is sometimes triangles can be a little tricky to sew because remember, what we're dealing with right now is bias. It's the stretchy side of the fabric. So you want to be very careful about, it's very easy to get distorted. So you want to make sure you're lined up absolutely correctly. Otherwise, this might not come out correctly. So one is absolutely stacked on top of the other. I'll take this to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew 1/4 inch. And you can see my 1/4 inch seam should really hit right there. So we're just going to come in and sew like this. Let's do that together so you see how this is going to work. Take your time with this. If you need to make any adjustments like this little one I just made, go ahead and do it. Because it's stretchy, you can kind of manipulate this fabric as you go if you need to. Okay. This is a light fabric, this is a dark fabric. I'm going to already start pressing the seam that direction. So let's go do that together now. We can even set that seam real quick. And let's go push that off to the side. Okay, let's keep bringing that back to here. Now, I just noticed something. See how these prints are exactly the same? I don't really want that. I want to have something different. So why don't I switch that? Then that's something that just happens when you're making projects. First, you might lay something out, and then as you're sewing, you kind of noticing two fabrics that are very similar or identical pattern. Just move it. So that happens all the time. Now we'll take the last piece and the top row, and again, I'm going to go ahead and line this up like this, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down, and we will again press in the same direction that we previously pressed. Okay, so that's the third piece. Let's take that back to the pressing mat. This was pressed this direction. Let's keep going in that direction. Now for the bottom row, when you sew those together, they'll be sewn together in the exact same way. Press the seam to the left as you're looking at it. So as I look at this, my seam is to the right, my seam is to the right. Do the same thing down here, but press the seams to the left. The reason for that is then they'll nest nicely when we sew the top half to the bottom half. So when I come back, I'll have my bottom half ready to go, and I'll show you how we sew those two together. Now that I have the top and bottom portions sewn together, I also just trimmed off the little dog ears that naturally happen, like these right here. I just like to trim those away. It reduces the bulk in the project. Okay, now that you've got the top and the bottom, lay those right sides together and nest those seams. See that little slot right in there? That seam and this seam? Go ahead and pin that. A couple spots so that's not going to shift on you. Take it to your sewing machine and you'll sew 1/4 inch, and then I want you to open that seam and press open. After that, we'll show you how to apply the fusible interfacing and sew the two halves together to get your pincushion finished up. I have my two halves now ready to go, and this is where the fusible interfacing comes in. So what I recommend that you do, there's the shiny side, that's the fusible side. Again, this was a medium to heavyweight interfacing. Why we're doing interfacing in the first place is that when you use the ground shells, if you don't use kind of a barrier behind the fabric, I've had this happen before in other pincushions I've made that I stuffed with the ground shells. They actually kind of start poking out, especially if you have a larger pin in there, maybe an embroidery needle that has more of a blunt tip. So this creates a little bit more of a barrier that keeps the shells inside and none of them are popping out. So this is where the friction pen is really, really handy. Now let's see here. Looks like we'll have to turn that just a little bit to make it fit. But let's go, in fact, you know what, let's not even, let me show you the option. You can either draw around this if you're worried about cutting this if you were to put the ruler on it. Or let me show you the other option. And I think I like this even more. I'm going to go ahead and very carefully put my ruler on top of my fabric. So when I trim along here, I'm not trimming the piece I just created. It's just trimming that interfacing. So my ruler is right on top of that. See how, oh, I guess I got just slightly, but nothing huge. So just very gently rotate that around. I'm going to keep doing this all the way around all of the 6 sides. I'm going to do the same for this. Now, before I go do the second one, once this is already trimmed, in fact, let's just do this together real quick. I don't want to go too fast because I don't want to accidentally cut my fabric. You'll take that to your pressing mat, and of course you'll iron that together. Be sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions for the fusible interfacing that you're using, so you do have the right heat setting. And our last side, let's get that done, and let's just go do this step together. Okay, so very gently I kind of lift those up as a unit. Let's take that to the pressing mat and let's iron that together. We will repeat those steps with the other half, and when I come back I will show you how to put the pincushion together. Now that the two halves have the fusible interfacing on the back, I will place those right sides together. And you'll just start lining up those corners. Now, when we made our sample, we noticed that as careful as we were with our triangles and as consistent as we were with our 1/4 inch seam, the two halves were not the exact same size. How does that happen? I don't know. And boy, it doesn't seem to matter sometimes how careful we are. Things aren't exactly the same from one half to the other. So I wanted to show you how to deal with that, because that's kind of the reality of crafting and sewing, is sometimes things aren't the exact same size, and then what do you do from that standpoint? So what I'm doing right now is just trying to line the center up. Over top of the center, kind of line it up so it's one is stacked right on top of the other. Now I want you to see this. We're pretty good over here, but we're off just a little bit here. Now what I'm going to do, because we need to sew these two halves together, I'm going to go ahead and bring my ruler in and just trim so that they are lining up exactly. Let's trim that side, and then I think the other 4 sides are okay. Let's take a look at that. Yes, I think I could trim up a little bit right there, but not a big deal. Now go ahead and pin that. We definitely don't want this to be shifting while you're sewing that together. So how we're going to sew this, the two halves together, of course I would keep pinning all the way around. Start just on the inside. You've got your seam here. Start in, I don't know, 1/2 inch maybe here. Start and stop and go back. Reinforce the beginning. Then go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch all the way around. Then once you turn this corner, again, go in about 1/2 inch, reinforce that, and then we'll turn that all the way out through the opening, and you'll have to get in there with a tool, maybe your like a bamboo skewer, or maybe you have a tool that you use to kind of poke in there and get those edges nice and flat. So when I come back, this thing will be sewn. We'll have the opening. It will have been turned right side out. I'll have pressed it as well, and then we'll go to the next step. I turned my pincushion right side out and turned this edge under. I'm going to show you that real quick. 1/4 inch, and just pressed it. It's great to do that ahead of time before you fill it with the ground nutshells, because once it's starting to get full, it's, that can get messy trying to now move this over there and lay it on its side, and the nutshells are coming out. So press that ahead of time. We also figured out that when you fill this, you might want to do that over top of a trash can, because it seems like no matter how careful we tried to be, some of them kind of escaped and got outside of that. So as you would expect, there was nothing really unique about filling this, except make sure you get the nuts into the corner and try to just work it throughout the entire pincushion. So I will get this to the stage. I'll just start filling it. I just started pouring them in. That we are ready to close the opening, and we'll just close that with a little whip stitch. And then I want to show you how I put that button on there, and also how to make the mini pincushion out of here using the hexamore ruler. So when I come back, I'll have this filled. I will have just done a quick little whip stitch. And in fact, let me show you how to do a quick little whip stitch. I'm going to put that aside for just a second. The quick little whip stitch is just going through the top like this. I want you to see that. Of course, you'd have either a clear thread. This is the Masterpiece Mono Poly Clear. So if you have red here and black here or navy, and you're not sure what color thread to use the clear, but also use 2 strands of it, because you just need more strength than just one. Or let's say that, like, here's a cream and cream. You could use the cream and the Masterpiece thread. That's 100% cotton thread. So Masterpiece is great if you're going to be using the color. If you need to go with the clear, go with the mono poly. So that's just how you run a whip stitch, is just come through the top, and you're just going to keep coming like this in short little stitches all the way across. Just keep going like that all the way across, tie off, and you'll be done. Now that's, of course, after it's filled. When I come back, my pincushion is going to be filled. I will have whip stitched that closed, and then I want to show you how to apply those buttons, because it's a little bit tricky, but it's very helpful if you use a doll needle. So if you have one of those, go ahead and get that out. And if you don't, it's a small investment, and you will use this on other projects, I guarantee it. So when we come back, I'll show you how to sew on those buttons and make the small pincushion. My pincushion is now filled with the bag of the walnut shells, and I wanted to mention that took the whole bag to fill this really full and have it be, really well in the corners. So if you're going to be doing the mini one too, you might want to pick up a second bag of those ground nuts, and it's really affordable, so it's a great one to have on hand. Now I wanted to show you how we kind of worked it through. We kind of see how this is kind of down in the middle a little bit like that? if you kind of push here in the middle like that, because that's where the button will be, it'll help get those nuts even more pushed into the corner. So kind of work it through like that. I wanted to show you how we did that. Now, I mentioned about a doll needle. You can get these at any craft store. Joann's would have them, Michael's, Hancock's. Some quilt shops will have these, so that's another resource as well. Thread that with, I have 2 strands of the masterpiece here. Now I'm using a kind of a gray button, so you could either have a black or gray, or you maybe go with white if you want your thread to show. In either case, I'm just going to come into where my center is here, and I'm going to anchor my knot there. I'm going to come back a couple times. I just want to make sure that knot is not coming undone and this whole area is secure. So let's go through that like that, and I've got a very secure area. Now we'll go ahead and come into the button and through the other hole, and I'm going to put the needle all the way through to the center of the other side. So we'll be sewing both buttons on simultaneously, and it's thick in there. Sometimes you can even press that against your, because that's where all the seams, you can even press that against your cutting mat, and that'll help push the needle through. So let's come back here and make sure that's going to lie nice and flat. Now we'll go ahead and do the same thing here, going back down through the center. Might have a little help there. And you're just going to wiggle it back through. I kind of move the button off to the side, find my starting point again. Looks like that's about right there. And I'll just continue doing this back and forth. Pull that through so you can see this here. Just make sure that's nice and flat, and this one's nice and flat. And I'll just keep going, crisscrossing back and forth down here, and I'll probably go through each hole at least twice, and then you can kind of pull the button a little bit off to the side and just tie off a knot a couple times, and then trim your thread and you'll be done. Now I mentioned to you from the leftovers from cutting the large pincushion, we can make the little pincushion, the baby pincushion, or what we call the away pincushion. So if you're going to a quilting retreat or a friend's house to sew or craft for the day, it's great to just take the little one with you. So take that stack that you had previously, and they should still be all lined up very nicely on top of each other. You'll take the hexamore ruler. Now we'll be using the 2.5 inch solid line. We'll take that to our stack. You can even, if they've moved at all, what I recommend you do, get a clean cut and start again, because these need to be the same size. Now very carefully pick up the ruler, go ahead and turn that to the side, and now you can start again with your 2.5 inch right there, and you'll just come in, you'll trim, and down on this side. There we go. A little bit of an awkward angle for sure. Let's get that trimmed up. I don't like to cut cross-handed, but in this case, we'll go ahead and do that. So now you will repeat the steps we previously did, laying them out, blunt on the top, blunt on the bottom, blunt on the top. And let's see, let's make opposite, just like we did before. And you will repeat the steps that we did for the large pincushion, for the little pincushion. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this fun home and away pincushion set.